Some jokes start out with two Irish guys go into a bar, and some companies start out the same way. Today's guest, Brendan McCluskey of Trident Builders, is an example of watching the winding path of everything that life throws at you and how it ultimately leads you back to this problem that you were meant to solve. I am excited to share with you this personal friend of mine who has really put together an amazing solution, not only in the building industry, but building things in a different way that really involve the community and how you can bring your experiences, not just from being in, say, the Goldman Sachs 10K program or working for a big builder or seeing a larger picture, studying the energy market, seeing the housing crisis, and how maybe your company can solve for that. If you're a fan of Simon Sinek's Start With Why, this episode is for you because Brendan's why is so powerful. His story shows you how you can take that and bring things that don't seem like they are connected together to solve a much bigger problem in this world. This episode is sponsored by Genesis AEC, Steel Toe Communications, and this episode is also sponsored by Illuminate. Brendan, welcome to the Breakout Moment.
Well, thank you, Christina. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy you're here. We have had some spirited conversations over the years, so I am excited to see where this goes. And I think, just kind of to kick things off, you and I were talking right away. First off, it's like, even the idea of, a moment, how we have moments every day. In the shower this morning while we were talking a couple minutes ago, and just as a business owner, how that just comes at you at breakneck speed, no matter what, whether it's a little moment or a big moment. So, one of the things that we were first kicking off and you and I were talking about, everybody's talking about right now is the impact of artificial intelligence, and particularly with you being in construction and so passionate about, scalable solutions, how housing ties to just a bigger economic picture, something you and I have spent a lot of time talking about, are both very passionate about. So, why don't we kind of start there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to give a frame of context, we got acquainted through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, and we've both been asked to do political advocacy for small businesses, and these things are definitely close to your heart as well as mine. And what I've been working on for the last few years has been very thoughtful and strategic, but it's also feels as if I feel it's like the pathway that I'm kind of walking down. And I think that it's interesting because this is one of the things that you and I have also talked about, is that every time I felt as if I had a plan laid out and I saw things kind of going the way that they want, I felt as if my entire world was like a snow globe and just got shook up. And I was very much humbled, right? And I feel as if everything that I'm working on right now is literally the consequence of my journey from 0809, right? I was a young man, late 20s, just living very, very well, right? I was
living the dream.
Yeah,
weren't we all?
I was living in rent free in a ski in, ski out chalet in Aspen, Colorado, with 3 other knuckleheads. It was like a year and a half long bachelor party to myself. It was crazy. Getting paid very, very well. But then the music stopped real hard.
Oh.
And I felt as if especially in commercial construction, it felt like unemployment was every bit of 65, 75%. I mean, I didn't really know too many people that had jobs. So I was somewhat humbled. I went back to business school. And at the time when you're in business school, you're, thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. I mean, this is what you do when you're in business school. So I was getting my MBA and I was messing with the energy markets. I learned about that. And then I eventually migrated back into the construction industry, started doing high-end work again, saw an opportunity to go out on my own. And again, was just thoroughly humbled, right? I thought I had it all figured out. I was ready to go. I'm a year and a half into this thing and I'm negative $300,000, in equity, right? I went out and just got crushed. I quit my job on April Fool's Day, 2015. And a week, and the verdict is, I think, still up.
April Fool's Day.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Right. Yeah.
I quit my job on April Fool's Day.
Yeah, pretty much. But what was sad in Baltimore was the day that like my first day of working was literally the week that led up to Freddie Gray. And I know I had been tracking about $6 million of potential backlog, thinking that, if I win a third of this, I'll be coasting for the first year of a startup. All right.
Right.
But I started this company undercapitalized knowingly. I wrote a business plan. I knew how much money I needed. I didn't have it.
Yeah.
I started it anyway. Right. And then
Well, what else are you going to do?
Exactly. And so that in the wake of Freddie Gray, all that work disappeared. Like all the investors from Philadelphia and DC, they're like, we can make enough money in our own markets. Baltimore, you have too many problems. Yeah. And so getting the company up and going was a real slog. And I'm dealing with it now to a degree. Like there's I made bad decisions.
We all do.
Right. Oh yeah. Like we're all entrepreneurs. We're all trying to figure this out.
You're hiring me for all the mistakes I've made that I now know not to make.
Yeah.
That's what you're hiring me for.
All this gray hair is what you're hiring me for. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's bad luck, and then there were no shortage of bad actors. There are some people that are just fundamentally dishonest.
Yes.
But I've always been very bullish on Baltimore. Like it has so much going for it. All of its fundamentals, like it's really not consistent with like the reality that it has. And it's the westernmost port on the East Coast. It's got phenomenal institutions. It's in a very wealthy, very well-educated state. It's got great infrastructure, but like it just can't seem to get out of its own way. And a big part of that is the fact that it's basically it's suffering from its own living legacy. Like it was one of like the first major industrial centers of this country. Like the railroad was founded there. The first major imports and exports from the heartland and the Midwest, went in and out of Baltimore.
That's right.
When we started slipping on our industrial capacity as a country, we started focusing more on a service-based market economy. Baltimore was not positioned to win, and I think the housing that was built for all those industrial workers is what we've got that are falling apart and becoming vacant, and like the houses are literally killing people. I mean,
it's bad.
Yeah, the vacant issue in Baltimore is costing the city, per Johns Hopkins, $210 million a year, right? Wow. And so if we don't really focus on the vacants in Baltimore, like we're really not going to be able to turn the corner because we just have too much of a deficit and an anchor in terms of our economic prosperity in the city. So like housing is central. Now I understand that I'm a builder, okay, and like to
a point. But I would say this. So everybody, obviously, we don't get associated with construction or building right away because we're marketing and revenue operations. So like, well, what do you have anything to do with that? But for me, it is this passion around, my grandfather was an electrical contractor. He started his own company. Just one day, just decided, I ain't working for somebody else anymore. Screw it. I'm going to do my own thing. No plan.
Yeah.
Right? World War II generation, though. A little different when it comes to the no plan.
Yeah.
But still, it's that same kind of grit. And it's always home ownership. People do not realize from an economic engine perspective, there are a couple key things generationally that can happen to a family that change the entire direction for generations later.
Yeah.
And one of them is home ownership. When you do not have a safe, secure place to live, to grow up and thrive, and you are worried about, am I going to be safe? Where am I going to live? It is a hierarchy of needs, not just personally, but also economically. Once your family is able to achieve that, other things unlock. And it's the same thing when it comes to energy. Kid that does not have lights at night can't study.
Yeah.
A kid that doesn't have food and is hungry can't think to study. It is so fundamental. People do not realize how important housing is. So when bad actors and people come into it, it infuriates me because it is so tightly woven into the generational fabric. It's not just an American thing. It's a safety situation.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because this lends itself to exactly how the whole white paper even came into existence. So
talk about the white paper.
Okay.
Briefly.
Yeah, try to get 65 pages out in 2 seconds.
But that was your, of all the things that like we talk about, we have moments all the time, but for you, that's a defining moment.
It is. It really is. So it all starts, two Irishmen walk into a bar. Like it
Okay,
really.
it sounds like a fat joke.
No, but like, seriously.
On April Fool's Day?
No. Like, so it was interesting. So, like over the course of my career, like in working in Baltimore, there have been times where I felt as if I've been tapped on the shoulder, and like a problem has been addressed to me, and it's like, work on this. And then like, I've done this time and time again. In fact, when my company was early and like on the ropes, I really felt my wife and I hated the company, right? Like, you know, it felt like a disaster and everything else. And someone
It'll
called
ruin a relationship.
oh yeah, it was a lot of stress. I mean, this is
stress.
It was not going per plan at all. But it was the first project that someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, there's this project called Fade Street Outreach, and it's over by Bond Square Hospital." Basically, a dubious contractor basically took the money and ran, and this woman that's acting like a surrogate grandmother for this entire neighborhood, right, was trying to build a youth center, right, a place where they could get studying and tutoring, and just a safe place where they could play video games, right. Like her dream for like 26 years at this point, like basically just evaporated. And so I got tapped on the shoulder, and I was like, all right, I'll take this on. And like, again, like, you know, we're basically hardly making payroll,
right?
But like this job presented itself, okay, and I had to use every bit of piracy and leverage and skill to get that project across the finish line, and it made me reaffirm that, like, you know what, no, I'm good at this. I'm good at my job. I'm better than a lot of my competitors, and who the hell else would have pulled this off with the resources that we had? And I did it. And so it kind of like reconstituted a belief. It's like, okay, this is something I got to pay attention to, and this is what I need to, when these projects come across my path, I don't have the luxury to say no. It's like when the man lays a job at your feet, do you get to say no? You don't get to say no.
No, you don't.
No, like it's
you're just gonna keep tripping over it.
It sucks to be Catholic, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So right. It's like we're leaning in on this. So fast forward, I've done a bunch of these at this point.
You have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I got tapped on again. And so the other Irishman, this guy named Sean Murphy, he basically approached me because Chanel White and Alicia Wilson, again through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, he approached both of them separately, and it was like, hey, I need a contractor to help me do this like bad news bear of a project in South Baltimore called Cherry Hill Eagles. And basically what this program is there's this guy who is a boxing promoter and is from the neighborhood. He could leave, right? He's made a ton of money, but instead he uses all of his free time and his resources to basically act as a surrogate father and run a football program for middle school boys. He's basically using football as a surrogate gang to keep the boys away from the criminal element, but also teaching them positive male role model and stuff and everything else. So
how to communicate,
all of it, accountability, and
sports can be so.
Football's great. Yeah, so sports in general.
Sports in general are really great. Yeah. For those lessons.
Oh yeah, and I'm very blessed that I'm using sport to a great degree. Thank God my boys are all jocks; they love it, and it's making my life a lot easier. I don't know what I'd do if they weren't in sports, right? Like, so anyway. We go on this project, and it was the same sort of deal. Guy's trying to do this. He's like rubbing nickels together, you know, and like the contractor runs away with the job half done.
Yep. We
enter the thing. We get it across the finish line. But at the same time, he and I are having a beer as the job's wrapping up, and I explained to him, right, look, like, we're also doing the project at the Smithsonian, where we did this panelized modular house that produced over 200% of the power it uses day or night 365. And based on my experience in understanding energy markets and like how vacants become vacants because the roof starts to fail, understanding rooftop leasing, like through my time when I was like interacting with like cell phone tower development and like some creative lease models, like I had just had a personal journey that allowed me to like see it. Like people say that, oh, this is a phenomenal idea, Brendan. I'm like, actually, I really feel as if I'm not the genesis. I'm just seeing and connecting the dots.
I just lived the path that let me see all the pieces come together.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So he's more like, Brendan, you got to write the white paper. I'm like, bullshit, I'm not writing the white paper, right? And
there was no AI then, by the way. No, you actually had to write the white paper.
Yeah, so this is, well, so it was emerging. This is 24.
Okay.
And it's funny you say that because like it was emerging, and we'll speak to that in a point. Yeah. But basically, I wrote this white paper. He challenged me to do it in 30 days. It took me 34, so I lost, right?
What was the bet?
It was like, who's buying beer next time?
Oh, a beer, okay.
Yeah. But the issue was basically what it was all right, how do you scale panelized modular construction and identify the problems of, and what are the challenges for market resistance or market adoption for panelized modular construction, because we've been talking about doing it forever, but like it just doesn't seem to take hold. It doesn't. Right? We talk about the vacants and what the math problem is, but it doesn't seem to take hold. We talk about the workforce development problem. It doesn't take hold. Like we're looking at all these sort of problems as being siloed.
It's like these gates.
Correct.
You got to get through, and each one is sitting, they're all connected.
Well, they are, right? And, you know, and the problems are even getting worse. So you look at a place like Baltimore, and I'm not a hyper woke guy. I'm just looking at like housing is a crisis. It's a very acute crisis in Baltimore.
Yes.
But housing is a national crisis. And there's a reason why, like, you know, like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is doing great work on this, and it's elevating it as a national issue. If like we have bills passed in both the House and Senate, those knuckleheads just can't seem to reconcile them to get the job done, and that needs to happen.
Yes,
but like you know, I'm basically looking at Baltimore with its rich industrial history. It's like you've got 13,000 vacants that you look as a problem. It's an opportunity.
Oh, it's definitely an opportunity.
It's feedstock, right? And so what we've been very intentional about is like, all right, how do we do this? But how do we do this in the smart, equitable way? And like a guy like me that looks like me isn't going into these predominantly African-American communities and just building on a mess. It's going to take forever. The permitting system is broken and everything else. What we need to do is figure out ways to empower the local leaders, which are predominantly African-American women, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, how do you close the gap and empower them to be basically the agents of the change that they want to be? And how do you insulate the risk, right? These women have incredible lived experiences. They're brilliant. You know, some of them are PhDs. That PhD isn't in real estate, right? They don't know anything about real estate. They don't know about construction. And they don't know, like, again, all the bad actors that are out there. You know, they're looking at the bottom line price and they go with a low guy, but then he takes the money and runs.
Right. Yep.
Again, this is something I've had to come in multiple times to clean up. So what we've been doing is organizing a cooperative as a scalability solution called Be More Co-op. And that was basically the genesis between a conversation with myself and a professor at Hopkins, as well as two other graduates of the Goldman Sachs program, right? And again, the 10KSB program has been phenomenal.
It's unbelievable.
Right?
The
Just
people
game-changing.
that we've met, this podcast is from that, because I met Stacey, who I introduced you to, who is the behind-the-scenes producer, through the Goldman Sachs program.
Oh, very cool.
So it's funny how, like, we all talk about, and we've all been part of other groups or whatever, and you and I probably both have a whole list of, like, don't waste your times.
Yeah.
But this one,
yes,
actually is worth it.
Correct. So, again, I know we're bouncing around. Let's go back to 2018. Well, no, I went through the Goldman Sachs program, right? And I feel as if like a job's laid before my feet, but then like I get supported in some way, right?
Yes.
And I basically was awarded that project as I was going through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business program.
God, what timing.
Right? And like, I already had an MBA. I had worked for some of the best builders and developers in the country, right? I knew how to deliver construction. So that's not where I needed help. I knew how to read balance sheets. I knew it didn't look good, right? Like, but I didn't need that. I needed the space to be able to think strategically rather than tactically. Because like, if you're running around in a firefight, just like trying to keep the doors open and keep the lights on, you know, you're just bogged down.
And you will always do that to a certain degree.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, this whole hover above your business thing is a myth. You move up and down.
Yeah.
It's a frequency. You move up and down. If you hover too high, you're out of touch.
Correct.
With your and you will lose it. You will lose touch with your business. Things will go on tilt.
Yeah.
If you stay in the muck with it too long, you'll never move it forward, because all you're doing is you created a job for yourself.
Yeah, that's 100% the case. So applying those same sort of like processes of like learning how to think strategic again, what are the underlying drivers of this problem, right? I mean, and to the point that like through the pandemic and all of it, I mean, I was reading everything. Like, one, thought leadership within the space in terms of like the history of the vacants and redlining and everything that happened in Baltimore, the housing market in general, but also things like trauma and like the effect of like pervasive poverty and intergenerational poverty, and like how that structurally just drives the mindset that needs to be healed.
It does.
All right. And you have to be intentional about that kind of stuff.
And it's learned.
Correct.
It's passed on and it's learned.
Yeah, and this is where it gets so exciting with like with everything that we've been working on. So the Be More Co-op, right, that I wrote about in the white paper is now a real thing. Like that white paper that came out in August of 24 has effectively manifested itself into reality. And again, you're like, how did that happen? I mean, I got hundreds of units in backlog. You know, I got $50 million of backlog. I just need to get there. We need to get through design, and that's a whole nother conversation about architects and that stuff.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, it's a different podcast. That's a therapy session. But the Be More Co-op is a real entity that I talked about. Is like, you need an entity like this because you need to figure out some sort of way for a greater degree of inclusive capitalism. This is stuff that guys like Ray Dalio talk about and Michael Bloomberg talk about ad nauseum.
Yes.
And we do, because like it's just not working. Okay. And we need to figure out housing, right? We need to do it at scale. And it's like, all right, Baltimore, you have these vacants. This is the feedstock for you to establish. You're going to spend billions of dollars to deal with it. Okay, what's that return on investment? Like, develop the industrial capacity to not just solve your problem, but the nation's problem in terms of housing, right? We need to build higher quality housing that's more resilient for the hotter century to come. Like it or not, it's going to get hotter.
No, we're going to get more extreme weather. Just get over it.
Yeah, it is, right? So the house that was built cheaply in 1910 is not going to be the way to do it. And I could go off ad nauseum down the rabbit hole on any number of issues in terms of like what these families of lower socioeconomic means are paying per capita in terms of energy bills. Like all their bills are more expensive than yours or ours because like they live in a shit house.
Right. No, it's a system that's set up to fail.
Yeah.
It perpetuates this failure cycle.
Yeah.
But I think what's so interesting is whether it's the white paper, but because the white paper is easy to like hold on to. But it's the idea that you were able to articulate a problem and a vision. And because you were able to do that through the white paper, and your experiences, to move that actually into becoming reality.
Yeah. Well, what's also kind of funny was that happened with the white paper is that right as I was publishing the thing, I was invited to serve on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Small Business Committee. And it's a very prestigious role, right?
It is.
But like the chamber is like right of center, right? And here I am talking about social justice and renewable energy and poverty in Baltimore, right? Okay, but like
as the construction guy.
As a mouth breathing, knuckle dragging construction guy, right? And so I forwarded them like the white paper, and I was like, are they going to kick me out, right? Half expected it.
Yeah.
What I was surprised was they called me up, and they dragged my ass down there a week later. I was having lunch with them at the Army Navy Club, right? And what they told me was that, hey, we're about ready to just drop this whole bomb. Like, housing's a national crisis.
Yes.
Business chambers all across the country saying that we need national leadership on this. We really need to focus on this. We really like your plan. And I mean, they immediately brought me in, and I've done multiple presentations in front of like national crowds about all this. And it just seems to be just steamrolling itself. Like, I just keep on leaning in on it. And like, I just keep on pinching myself. I got all this backlog. So I've got all the work, right? Mm-hmm. But then we're being elevated. It'd be like, hey, how do we solve this? And we just keep on doubling down on all this stuff. So that same business professor that helped me come up with the idea for Be More Co-op, and it's a real entity. It's an LLC established last year. She just happened to be having lunch at a faculty meeting, sitting next to this brilliant guy who happens to have a master's of electrical engineering degree from MIT and an MBA from Wharton.
Jeez.
Who's the director of the AI intelligence lab at Johns Hopkins. Okay, and she's like, you need to talk to this crazy guy named Brendan, right? So he and I are having this conversation, and it's like, we don't really know why we're talking to each other until he describes what he's been working on. And what he developed was these AI agents that are hyper secure, right? Because they had to follow HIPAA rules that are focused on doctors and patient privilege.
Right.
So he's telling me about like
really sensitive data,
right? And the agent is basically there to be like shadowing the doctor. So the doctor's not sitting there typing, the doctor can focus on the patient. So like it can generate the report and all that sort of stuff. And in the course of the conversation, I was like, this is a really, really powerful tool, because I'm thinking about what that could mean for the daily report, right? So the daily report, it's done by our superintendents in the field at the end of a hot day when all they want to do is get in their truck and drive home, right? It is the worst done thing that I consistently see C and C minuses on. But like, what isn't understood is that daily report more or less captures all what happened that day.
Yes.
And if you can start identifying and finding where the leakage on the job site is happening, it's in that daily report. Like the game is won or lost in the field. And so I started having a dialogue with him. It's like, we really could flip like the project management platform for like computers on its head and drive immense amounts of efficiencies, right, to lower housing costs, but also everything, right, and scale this at large. And it was really interesting. He was really enthused about it, and we had a conversation. We talked to like the Johns Hopkins Tech Ventures group. They immediately bought into it, and the direction to form the Delaware C Corp happened yesterday.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and it's going to be very intentional, but again, it's not Trident Builders tool, right?
No,
like I'm building this, and I'm giving it away.
You're solving. I think the thing that's so important is, and I think this is where the difference between the businesses that grow and adapt and the businesses that stagnate and fall away. When you are constantly solving not just for your problems, but the problems that you see that others share with you.
Yes.
You will get momentum no matter what. You will always get momentum. And I always kind of remind people, if you're having the problem, somebody else is too. It's not just you.
Yeah.
It is not just you. And it doesn't matter if it's like you're talking about a project report, something that happens in the field. That's not just a construction.
That's everything.
It's all businesses have some version of a project report. And it is the hardest thing to get anyone to actually like. The project management side of it is the toughest part. The actual documentation is the hardest part. The signals come from conversation. And being able not just to capture that, but then understand the context and the nuance around it and what that actually means. Read the room, pick up on the vibes. It's really important because it's very often it's the things that are left unsaid too. Not just the things that are said. The things that are left unsaid it's what's most important. And having that emotional intelligence, sometimes at the end of the day, a project manager, somebody's just like, I'm tired. This is what was said. I did what they said. Done. Would you like large fries with that and a Diet Coke?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Whereas you and I, are looking for. They asked for that, but really the problem's 3 steps bigger than this. And I'm really excited to see what you do with that.
Well, again, it goes back to the Goldman Sachs program. I mean, I feel as if like that was also a huge benefit of the program. It's lonely being the entrepreneur.
Oh God, yeah.
Right, and then going into a room where you can just sit there and be very honest and be like, yeah, this is how I screwed up on this, and you just share stories, and it's across industries. And so, thinking about how important. I mean, again, between Goldman Sachs and the Voices program, but then also the Chamber, and then even Small Business Majority that I've been asked to do some advocacy for. I'm pretty much agnostic in terms of the politics of it. Like, what I care about is small business, and I really, really am concerned about how AI is going to disrupt it, right? Because like those that have the resources that can adopt it are going to be able to gobble up a lot of like the workload, and I feel as if there's going to be a lot of small businesses that are going to fail to be able to adapt. And I think that what I'm working on is so incredibly intentionally focused on the smaller companies and the people that are in the field that are best positioned to solve the problems. Again, it's that African American developer that has 5 lots in East Baltimore, right? Like that's who I want to empower, right? Because there are thousands of them in cities across the country, right? She's the agent of change. Okay? Nothing against Tom Bizzuto. I used to work for him. Love, great company.
Great guy.
Tom's not going to fix all the cities.
No.
Okay. What you need is you need to be a force multiplier, and that's where I think I'm approaching the AI battle in this like journey with Johns Hopkins. Is that I want to build a tool that is a force multiplier for small business, and it absolutely resolutely keeps us at the table and keeps us relevant, if not makes us stronger.
Agreed. I love that. And I think that's where we'll wrap it up.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you, Christina.
Thank you for coming in.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
I was gonna,
You're going to get it in there.
I was going to do it.
This episode is sponsored by Genesis AEC. Genesis AEC, where science meets the built environment. As an ENR number 5 ranked firm, we provide a single point of accountability for life sciences and advanced manufacturing. We integrate architecture, engineering, and construction with specialized CQV, asset management, and sustainability to deliver high-performance facilities nationwide. This episode is also sponsored by Steel Toe Communications. Steel Toe Communications builds marketing from the field up, using real projects, real crews, and real results. They help construction owners attract the right people, tighten up their messaging, and build long-term trust with marketing that reflects how their company actually operates, not something pulled from a template. And this episode is also sponsored by Illuminate. Illuminate empowers businesses with AI-driven marketing, revenue operations, and CRM implementation and training to drive sales growth and strengthen customer engagement. If your business is navigating the messy middle and you're ready to grow with purpose, with a partner that understands B2B business marketing and operations, visit illuminate.com to connect.